Good morning. Welcome back to the lecture. Today we will make a case. We will have an overview of a case which was discussed in a seminar at the beginning of the year, in which you were invited to participate. In that invitation, I anticipated you that that topic of that seminar was a seminar on 23rd of February. The Zeus Colloquia was on, well, I don't remember the title, but it's in one of the slides, Transforming Welfare Infrastructures in Europe, the Use and Abuse of Algorithms in Decision Making. The guest was Doris Saluter, who shared in that occasion the characteristics of an ADM system which was used by the Public Employment Service in Austria, and that we will rediscuss together today. After that, I will share with you some thesis proposals. We'll give you an overview of examples of theses that are possible in the topic of data ethics and not only. I remind you what are the main general characteristics of the system. The system was used by the Public Employment Service in Austria in order to profile job seekers and decide which of them should receive assistance from the state. In what? Assistance in finding a new job. Could be directly providing a personalized service to find new jobs, to receive a personalized applications, for instance, or funding for strengthening the curriculum with some courses, attending some classes, for example. The deployment of the system was started in 2020. At the moment, it is under legal disputation for issues of discrimination. It is important to reflect on the political goal of the system, because it has a direct impact on the technical goal that was implemented in the prediction and classification system. The high-level political goal was to make the funding, the service offered by the employment agency of the state of Austria more effective. It means using the money in a better way. How to define what is better? How to define what is good money spent and not, and what is public money that is not well spent on this specific sector of welfare, that is providing assistance for finding a job. The general idea was that based on experience or running the service along the years, the most fruitful money spent was the one spent into prospects, into profiles of people who were neither too good, because the people who is already very good will find a job without problems. So this is the rationale behind, the logic behind. So neither them nor the people who has a profile who is too low, because basically you admit that there is no hope for them, or that the process for them to find a job is very long. So the decision of the employment service or employment agency was to find a way to identify the so-called mediocre prospects. So people that are neither too good, that are not excellent, let's say, or very good in their skills, nor too bad. But people that are in this medium level, so that's the return on the investment, you can call it like this, is maximized because they have the better chances to use the money that they receive and to find job in a quite short time. This is the justification of the political goal that is behind the deployment of this system. Is this goal clear, or should I repeat in a better way? So for example, let's make a couple examples. Having a PhD would exclude you immediately from getting assistance, because you already have a very high education level, and so you are supposed to find your way to find a job. So you don't ask the state, or if you ask, you don't need that help, because you already have a high educational level. Similarly, a person with experiences of management, for instance, with very good past salaries, very high, they can be excluded because the profile is already high. On the contrary, people who has very low educational level, for instance, people with non-Austrian nationality, they have such low skills that it is very hard for them, even if they get assistance, to find job. So this example serves as, in order to understand the broad categories that should be excluded from funding. And this is a political decision, because there is a certain logic behind this. Then, once you have this political goal, can be even a business goal. In other contexts, not a context of public administration, can be exclusively a business goals. This political goal was centrally also affected by economic needs to spend less money. How it was turned into a classification goal? It was turned into a classification goal in the following way. So 3 prospects were created, 3 profiles. Group H, labeled as high chance to find a job within 6 months. The documentation that was made available is not enough to understand what high chance means, how this probability is computed, and why 6 months is indicated. So thresholds, we don't have indications on how the thresholds were established. So we have to take them as they are. The group L is the group of the low prospect. So that is the low chances of getting unemployment for the next 2 years. We don't know whether the length, the duration of the unemployment is linked to specific aspects of the law, to statistical records, to expert opinion. We have no indication of that. And also the low chance, we don't know what is the thresholds of low chance. And then we have the group M, the group medium or mediocre, is the group that will receive assistance. So it is defined in a complementary way. So it is all those that are not classified neither with H and neither with L. So the medium prospects, this is the ones that should receive funding, assistance for finding a job. It was supposed, according to some documentation, that a regression model should have been used, but then there are no, there is no certainty about the actual model used. From the point of view of, from the technical, merely technical point of view, having such three categories could be quite neutral, only from the technical point of view. Is a classification task. We see that there are many technical choices that actually are value laden, so they have some political perspective behind them, or they are just limited. They have several limitations in terms of measurement issues. What kind of data was used to build a model that could make such an output, such a classification? So data were used, two types of data that were collected from the normal registration to the AMS network, to the employment service, in order to get not only assistance for finding a job, but in general for assistance for welfare, to get welfare services. And then the data from the main association of the Austrian Social Security institution, that is personal, basically personal data. We have a first problem here. The problem is that according to the GDPR, if you collect information, you should collect for a given purpose. And then if you change the purpose, you should ask again the permission, or you should collect from scratch the data. And so this is the very first problem, that you are using data that was collected for other purposes. Now let's move on, and we see what kind of data, at least those that were the researchers were able to identify from the available documentation. Data were organized in so-called data constellations, that are groups, intersections of subset of the following variables, the ones that you see in the table and that we will analyze together, with specific values. So a constellation could be a male, a young male, because it's below 30 years old, Austrian, from a specific regional labor market. This is a type of constellation. So profiles, statistical groups that share specific characteristics, specific chances of getting a job according to the historical data. We don't know that exactly what were the data constellations, but there were many. There were just statistical groups. First variable that is tracked is gender in a binary way, and then age group that for some reason that is unknown was categorized into three very broad categories. Less than 30 years old, so basically young people, between 30 and 49, and then more than 50 years old. So you have, instead of a linear or a continuous scale, we have three categories. From scratch, we have a categorical variable with three levels for age group. What kind of issues, potential issues, is linked to this category? Well, having 18 years old is very different from having 29 years old from the point of view of employability, because you might have taken university in the middle. For example, you might have already some job experiences at 20 and 28. So building a model in which all people below 30 years old is in one group could be not correct, because they are in this category. There are very different people. Always provided the context at hand. So in this specific context of job applications. Then we have citizenship that is provided in three categories: Austria, European, or non-European countries. Very broad categories, but these are quite common. So national, European level, and non out of Europe. Education level was tracked with three main categories: grade school, apprenticeship, vocational school, or secondary school. That was attention that was put together with university level. So secondary or high school were no, I'm sorry. This is my error at the moment here now, because it's not a comma, the separator, but it's the slash. So I apologize for having made this error. I didn't remember that the delimiter was the slash. So grade school, apprenticeship put together with vocational school. Grade school, well, it's Monday, so I'm making confusion with this category. Let me check 1 second. So the delimiter is actually the slash, so I was right. I should check. I'm not 100% sure. So I borrowed this slide from Doris Saluter, and we have issues in both cases. So as you can see in all the other rows, the delimiter is the slash. So according to this sign, high school and secondary school is put together to university, because there is only a comma. So my first comment was right. It is very strange to me, but if I should double check that if this is confirmed, this is a measurement issue, because high school is very different from university level. Educational high school is very different from university level education. Let's go ahead. If I will change the data, I will change the slides. Otherwise, if slides do not change, this is the right information. Then we have information on health impairment, very broad, and then this is yet another measurement issues, because obligations of care, this attribute is applied only to women. And well, this is really a value-laden category variable, because you track this information only for women, so you suppose that only women has care obligations. And this is a serious error made by the agency. The occupational group was also very broad: production versus service. So working in the education sector, for instance, will follow under service, which is not a good categorization. So the category here were too broad. And then we have 5 categories for regional labor market, each category corresponding to to a specific regional market. Then we have again the choice of arbitrary thresholds, or at least as they appear, because regarding the prior occupational career, we have level of less than 70% of the time spent in the last 4 years in which you were occupied and employed, or higher than 70%. That means in the last 4 years you had a job for more than 75% of the time or less. Cases within 4 years intervals, it means how many times you asked for assistance to the employment service. Never. 1 time, 2 times, once a year, and 3 or more times. They are called cases because once you ask for assistance and then a procedure follows. So only the requests that were followed by an official procedure in which you have a person who follows your case and provides you the assistance. Can be meetings, can be assistance for improving the curriculum. They help you in writing in a better way the curriculum. Can be assistance in finding better education courses, vocational courses, etc. We have also information on the duration of the cases. And this is strange because instead of computing accumulation of the duration, as it was done for the prior occupational career variable, here the duration is made in a strange way. That is in 2 categories, only 2 categories. 0 cases less than 6 months that lasted for more than 6 months, and 1 or more cases that lasted for more than 6 months. So basically the name of the variable is misleading because you are counting the number of cases which lasted for more than 6 months. And this can be seen as a variable that was designed to track how much difficult was to provide proper assistance so that you find a job. You can read this variable in this way. But the variable is a bit, the name of the variable is a bit misleading. Then the number of measures that were claimed, known, minimum 1 supportive measure, minimum 1 supportive of type educational, so you attend a course, for example, minimum 1 subsidized employment. So this is a bit technical. It's the type of how the cases ended, basically, which was the measures that was applied to that case. And then you have yet another variable with duration of unemployment that is related to the last unemployment, because it's a single duration, while your history of unemployment is tracked somehow with the variable prior occupational career. The duration of unemployment is regarding the last unemployment. And it is on a 3 months, measured with a 3 months level of granularity. What you can see here in this set of variables is a mix of measurement errors, value-laden variables. Look here, obligations of care, only women. Categories that are too broad, for instance, age group, two broad categories. Even citizenship is quite broad. Mixed levels of granularities as for educational level, as we commented. Categories that can lead by design to discrimination, like a regional labor market, because we know that we have some markets that are more dynamic and other markets that are less dynamic. If you live in a certain area of Italy, it's easier to find a job than if you live in other areas of Italy. Internal immigration in Italy is still present, for example. And if you track the different regional labor markets, you run the risk of reproducing such discrepancies, because you have a correlation with the chance of finding a job, and also the duration of unemployment, for sure. This case was inspirational for an exam in which I basically used almost the same variables, relocating the case in Spain and simplifying a bit some of the variables. It was so instructive, even if it was a real case, but it was so instructive that I could use it almost as it is for an exam. That we will also solve together. What about the quality of such classification system? Only the precision as a measure of quality was released and was documented and published. And we know that the precision for group H, high-low prospects, was roughly 84%. Oh. The percentage, the ratio of true positive among all those that were classified as positive. So an error that could be as high as 20%. And then group L, precisions in the range of 80–90%. So the range was higher, means the variability was higher. The range was broader. What about group M? Not provided because, as we have commented at the beginning, it was that group, that level of the category was a result, a complementary to the other classification. So it was like a subtraction from the group of people who were classified as H or L. So if you were not classified neither with H nor with L, you were automatically classified with M for subtraction. Results, that's why results were not provided for group M, at least one of the main reasons. What are, in terms of number of people in a country like Austria, what does it mean having a precision of 80%, roughly 80–85%, or maximum 9 from the low prospects? It means that more than 100,000 people gets the wrong results. It means that you had a right to get assistance, but you did not receive assistance. And this is not technical, not only technical. Is such a percentage acceptable given this type of service? And what is a good percentage for such a classification system? These are open questions, but these are questions that need to be made in order to understand the impact, the social impact of an error of such system. Then let me add something more. Is the technical implementation chosen really the best one that can fit the political goal of making an organizational goal or making the assistance more efficient? This is a bit the design of such a system is more towards punishment of people rather than helping people, because if your goal is to not to provide decide to get help from an ADM systems on how to help people, but the problem is shifted from how to help people to who should get help. It's very different. So this is a very central point. Employ assistance for finding job is turned to be from being universal from being selective. And in the organizational goal, such a shift was not present, at least not explicitly, but through its technical implementation, this shift was made concrete. Of course, it's not only technical, it's a mix, because one could keep this such a classification system and could use the classification differently. So you can decide that you invest more money to medium prospects and less money to L and H instead of stopping assistance, of not providing money at all. So you could use, is it clear? I see some face is not convinced, yours, for example. Did you understand or not? Otherwise I repeat. Okay. So the goal, the way the classification was used is the following way, is the following. If you are classified L or H, you don't get assistance for finding a job. Otherwise, if you are not classified L or H, so you are M, in group M, you get assistance, okay? So this is selective. There is a shift from a universal assistance to everybody to only those who have a high chance of employability. This was made through for a technical system, okay? But as I say, the decision, of course, is not only technical, because you could use the same classification in a different way. You could say, if you are classified L on H, you receive, let's say, less money, so less assistance, less service. Let's say 30% of the overall capacity of the employment service, and the rest goes to group M. We can debate whether it is still right or not, but you don't have such a shift. You have a prioritization. Sorry. But you don't have an exclusion from the service. Is it clear now? As usual, and as I underlined in the formalization shared when speaking about bias and fairness, you can take the classification as it is, and it informs directly the decision, so it is a decision. Or you can take the classification and use as a base for the decision, but the decision is influenced by other factors also. And this is important. Then let's go ahead on the quality of the AMS algorithm. Of course, using precision as only indicator of quality is not good. you need also information about, for example, the false negatives and a broader set of indicators. And then we had unfairness in terms of different disparate performances according to different groups, social groups. Either social groups as in the real, in their general meaning, and in their specific meaning of constellation, the artificial social group created by the combinations of the several categories. It has to be noticed that women and that minorities were particularly affected, also women, also people from not from Austria. This was the result of the concretization of historical biases in this system. Because, as I was saying earlier, tracking, for example, the regional labor market and using it as a feature for employability embeds, since design phase, a historical bias, because you have regional markets, specific regional markets that are in which it is much more difficult to find a job. Then, women at the beginning of unemployment result to be twice more, so 2 times more times being predicted as low prospect. And so you don't get assistance just because you are women in your early career. Migration background also was particularly affected, but also people with age higher than 50 years old systematically gets lower scores. These were concretizations of historical bias, but that because of the categories used, and regardless of the model used, they perpetuate the differences in employability. Then, and this is a summary of something that I already said, then we had measurement biases through weak abstraction of variables, hard thresholds. I told you that care obligations applied only to women, and this is an error. Aggregation biases, because we have, even within the constellations, we have particular groups that have higher employability than others. This is natural from the point of view of optimization, but from the point of view of discrimination, it is bad, because you have you have an optimization based on personal attributes or on proxy of personal attributes. And then we have other types of bias. For example, the changes in occurring in a given region labor market were not tracked, as well as very particular events, like can be the closure of a large company in a poor regional market region, the COVID also, etc. Extraordinary events that occurred during the time span and have had an effect that should have been isolated. Then, regarding the values embedded in the software design, we already commented about the variable women, but the fact itself that you use that employability is a measure of some variables, of some skills encoded in a curricula, this is also value-laden. The fact that that your employability depends only on you and not on the context around you, this is ideological. This is very specific to a given perspective of the world. I'm not saying that this is right or wrong. I'm saying that the employability with such an optimization system is a shift from being a social problem, a social construct, in which there is a mix of your own personal skills with the environment that is around you, and becomes an individual problem. It's only because of your skills. It's only because of your traits. It's only because of some numerical, categorical attribute that is assigned to you. Your biography itself is reduced to a feature of a model. Qualitative aspects are lost. You don't have anymore a prioritization or an individual analysis made by a person. It is not scalable, okay, but at least can identify specific characteristics of the biography of the person that only a person can appreciate, can better qualify. If you turn it into a mere prediction model, you lose all of these aspects. And you, as I said, you tie the responsibility of finding a job merely on the skills and on the attributes, on the characteristics, some of them even physical, of the people, of the single individual. So whatever has been claimed as objective cannot be accepted as objective, given the way the system has been designed, the goal of the system, and given also the impact. So, going towards the conclusion, some steps towards the conclusion, did at least the algorithm meet the organizational goal that was stated at the beginning? Partially, more no than yes. Borrowing from the experience of Doris Salutard, who studied the system for quite long, being employed at the Office of Technology Assessment in Austria, so could access some internal documents. She, through qualitative interviews to the officials following the cases, she found that following a cases now with such system turned to be rather a routine mention, a routine activity, rather than a very personal activity in which you analyze by yourself the curriculum, the employment history of a person. And so you lose somehow in your activity as officer of the employment Austrian service, you lose your the possibility to be guided from your own interpretation of a profile. So there are doubts about the increase of efficiency of the counseling process, because you get only a classification without explanation. We have seen that there was a quite broad profiling of people, and so there are doubts also on the fact that the founds were used in a quite effective way. And then also, as I said, the disparate impact that was measured is a problem because of discrimination, and because that you cannot claim to be objective when using objective criteria when giving the funding, because you have then a disparate impact. And I remind you that the system is under legal dispute because of discrimination issues towards minorities. Then we had other issues that are common when predictive optimization is used in the public, often not only in private companies, but also in the public administrations that have accountability duties that are higher, even higher than in the private sector. No transparency about data collection and design details. You could not contest, verify the classification on you. Individual agency is very limited, also on the job seekers, not only on the officials. As I said at the beginning, where some sensitive information was used with other purposes, and then if you are not, if you don't get assistance for finding a job and you keep not finding a job also because of that, your life becomes very difficult. So you have long-term social and psychological consequences on the persons. And here you find a summary of issues that were already discussed throughout the presentation, and that are classified according to the schema that we already used for Compass. Are there questions on this? Yes, please. This is a problem of different data quality across specific social groups, and for this kind of variables, if you don't have the history, the employability history of people coming from abroad, you don't have the data. Yes. Other questions? Okay. I make a change of program because I was faster than I thought. So I will show slide thesis proposals on next Monday, and I will now go on with another case so that we can close, we can finish all the possible cases that I planned to make in the course. I will upload the slides right after the lecture. We have now another case about, I would like to share with you another case about, again, about welfare, again in Europe, in the Netherlands. It's about a system, well, a pair of systems, two systems that had such a big impact that Prime Minister of the Netherlands had to resign. So the political impact was huge. Well, then he was re-elected, but this is how to say, this is it was democratically related, so this is not our concern. The system is, the first system is SIRI, System Risk Indicator. This is the name of the system. The organizational goal of the system was to support officials in state officials in investigating when a welfare fraud was occurring. Frauding the state by receiving assistance, for instance, for paying the rent, is a problem in the Netherlands, a relevant problem, but if you look at the statistics that I put in the footnote, is only a tiny portion of the total tax fraud that is estimated to be 22 billion euros per year in the Netherlands. You can imagine in Italy how much it is. Welfare fraud is estimated to be about 150 millions per year. So it's a tiny fraction of the whole tax fraud. This was the organizational goal, to support officials in finding frauds. The system goal was to predict the individual's risk of welfare frauds. So getting a risk score for a specific person. So the support, the organizational goal of getting support to investigating welfare frauds was turned into a prediction system and a risk prediction system. So it was turned into a prediction task, basically. Well, expected benefits, you can imagine, use in a better way the money, increase the social justice, and also make the work, the manual investigation of the officials more effective, more faster. The system was incorporated into the Dutch legislation in 2014. It means that a law had to declare the possibility to build such a system, because it required a massive collection of personal information. It was developed by a startup, the Tota Data Lab startup. Data from several sources were collected, and then a model was built. We don't know what kind of model was built. The system has been, by the official documents of the European Commission, was classified as an artificial intelligence system. This is a paragraph or a report that was published by the JRC, sorry, Joint Research Center of the European Commission, and was classified as a predictive analytics tool. It offered also functionalities for simulation, data visualization. Could be used both at central level and the central state level and at the municipal level. As we know, is about welfare, so in the social protection sector. Purpose was enforcement, so because after a prediction was made, a verification followed, and then a sanction could follow. This system was described as one of the most full success cases of deploying artificial intelligence in Europe. How it could be adopted? So in order to be adopted, let's switch directly to the schema. Two public agencies, a municipality together with a regional authority, for example, should ask permission to the Ministry of Social Affairs and Employment. The ministry would have analyzed the request and give permission. The giving permission implies two actions. First of all, a procedure, the procedure must be published. It means that it will appear in the national gazette, like Gazzetta Ufficiale in Italy, that in the region X or in the city X or even in the neighborhood of X of the city Z, the system is deployed. So this is the Minister of Social Affairs and Employment must make the deployment of an instance of the system public, and he decided to make it like this, with a publication in the National Gazette. How many of you read the Gazzetta Ufficiale every week? Okay, so this is the level of publicity that was chosen. Anticipated this was part of the problem. Then, once permission was given, the instance was deployed in a given geographical area, and it was deployed and run. The analysis was run by the local authority or the requesting authority, and then a report was created with the list of people that was indicated as high risk of welfare fraud. The analysis was made with pseudonymized data. It means that real names were substituted with IDs, but the same name was substituted with the same ID in different database because there was the need to merge different data sources. So that's why it's pseudonymized, because then at the end also you need to revert the process, and once you have the list of predictions, you have to find the real names, because then you have to verify the situations. This list has been firstly sent to the Inspectorate of the Ministry of Social Affairs and Employment. This is a specific unit of the ministry that verifies the predictions for possible errors, verify against general statistics or welfare fraud, etc. Then the verification and verified report is sent back both to the Ministry of Social Affairs and Employment and to the local agencies. The Ministry of Social Affairs and Employment can recheck again the report and then must keep track for at least 2 years of the report. The local public authorities, let's say Municipality of Amsterdam, then who made the request together with the administrative regions it belongs to, then can verify the predictions. That means that can verify directly and can make verifications even at home. So, for instance, if you receive assistance for paying the rent, you can get a verification at home to check that you actually live there. Cases were verified in all possible ways, and then sanctions were sent to the people or to the families. As you can see, there is quite a robust balance of checks amongst institutions to verify, at least statistically, or at least from the procedural point of view, the errors. I will skip the description of this process because I told you, I directly told you, and I will go directly to the data used. The data was incredibly large, was from the point of view of the of data engineering was a success. It merged data from several levels of authorities, regional, national, municipality level, and for really a large variety of data sources, including, for example, and not exclusively, work, fines, penalties, taxes, properties, houses, education, also personal data, debts, economical data, benefits that you are taking, permits, exemptions, and many, many more. Even the power consumption, even the water consumption. As I said, the data was pseudonymized in order to turn back into real names for the verification process. Now, was it really a success? Some problems. As I told you, the system, the instance, the deployment of a given instance, of a given analysis, was deployed only in low-income neighborhoods. So the requests were made only for specific neighborhoods that were, according to the local authorities, there were probably higher chance to detect a fraud. But this is a selection bias because it was like the predictive policing problem. If you look for a crime only in a specific area of the city, you will find a crime in that area, but only in that area, not in the others. So if you apply such a system, such a statistical system only into specific areas, you will find frauds only in those areas, of course. Then you have the problem of feedback loop, because if you find the new crimes, new welfare frauds, and if you update the datasets with the new frauds, then you will have a reinforcement of the prediction that will still point to give still higher risk rates into those regions. This kind of of potential impact are the possibility to change structurally the condition of life of people in a specific neighborhood or in a specific city. This is the same consideration that we made with predictive policing, with predpol tool. You can really change the behavior of policy. You change the behavior of police. You change the behavior of the officers in this case. And you create problem zones. You create areas in which there is a higher level of scrutiny that is fed constantly by further recommendations, decisions, predictions. What about citizens? The only way to know that the system is applied into your city or into your neighborhood is through the National Gazette. Otherwise, you cannot know that the system is being deployed. Or you know only at the end of the process, when you get a verification at your home, when you get a letter that you have to pay a fine or that you have to show some documents. Only at the time you really know in practice that you are under investigation and that the tool was used with your data. So if you don't know that the system is being deployed, and even you don't know that you are under investigation, you will never contest the decision. And at the very end, it's very hard to contest such a decision because the classification is based merely on statistical patterns. So your risk is high only because of some correlations found in the huge amount of data that was collected. In practice, this was what you've read in the last line. This was the real impact. Once sanctioned, only certain people were sanctioned because the analysis was run only in certain neighborhoods. And then once sanctioned, it was very difficult to defend yourself, or even impossible. There were some public calls for more transparency about the algorithm, but were denied by the government. Two public calls were made. A motion were filed in Parliament in 2018, and later the court also asked for more details about the model. And the answer was negative. Motivation? It was used the Goodhart's law as motivated, or the AMS law, because the state wrote in the answer that providing transparency on how the data was used and how the model has been made would have the effect to let the citizens try to fake the system, to change their behavior in order not to be predicted in the right way. So the state, they didn't mention the Campbell's law and the Goodhart's law, but these are actually those laws. Because if you know that you are a certain algorithm, a certain procedure evaluates you against certain factors, of course, you change your behavior because you don't want a negative evaluation. Here I reported some sentences from an independent audit was made by an NGO in the Netherlands. I read them. The results of the algorithm do not appear to be reproducible. Well, if you don't know the model, and it's difficult to reproduce the results. And the risk indicated by the algorithm are largely randomly determined. So, as you know, the larger is the database and the higher is the probability to find spurious correlations. So it was like determining in a random way the risk. So it's not 2010, and this is 2021, so 2 years ago. 2020, the Hague court said this system is illegal. And it's very interesting to have a look at the sentence. It's very informative. The sentence makes history in the Netherlands. So similar systems need to change the way they're designed in order to be deployed. And the sentence is very instructive from the data ethics point of view. First of all, the main reason of the negative sentence was relying on Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights. Not exclusively, but the main was the right to have a proper life, your own life, without interference from the state. Such interference can be accepted only if there are serious risks, documented serious risks about national security, public safety, economic well-being, prevention of disorder or crime, protection of health or morals, protection of the rights and freedoms of others. And should be proportional, the interference to your life should be proportional to the risk, to these aspects. Here are some excerpts that I think are very instructive. The legislation, the Siri legislation, so the law that permitted Siri, the deployment of Siri, and the deployment itself of Siri, does not comply with the fair balance that must exist under the European Convention on Human Rights between what the social interest and your rights, your individual rights. So there is a conflict of values, and it was not managed. So because it was decided to give the highest priorities to the societal values. So we can call it social justice, economic efficiency of the state. These were put with highest priority into the design of the system, in the deployment of the system. The individual right to have your life and your data not used was not considered basically at all. And then there are, beyond these motivations, there are other more technical principles that are based on specific values and principles. So the principles of transparency, well, not transparent, I told you why. Purpose limitation, so you collect data from a purpose, and then you cannot reuse the same data for other purposes. And the principle of data minimization that was forgotten at all. The right to respect for private life is connected to other rights, to other individual values that are personal autonomy, personal development, and self-development. So agency, your own agency to run the life that you would like. And the right to enter into relationship with others and the outside world. So by infringing Article 8 of the European Human Convention of Human Rights, you are also impacting other rights that are the ones that are identified. So be careful, these are impacts, indirect impacts on other rights. The principles of transparency, the limitation principles and the data minimization principles are infringed procedurally, so through the procedure in which the system was developed. And then at the end, we have also discrimination issues, because the right to respect for private life also affects the right to equal treatment in equal cases, and the right to protection against discrimination, stereotype, and stigmatization. So analyzing the results obtained, the impact on people, the actual impact, the way it was deployed, all these rights were identified as not respected. So the system should be stopped, and it was stopped. I make you the following example, just to let you understand the level of detail of the data that was collected. If you get a benefit for having a rent and you are single, so getting support from the state for living alone in a house, and if you had a low usage of running water, you would have classified as high risk. This is one of the concrete examples of the types of correlations that were found and enacted into investigations. The rationale is that you might get the benefit and live with someone else, but you could also consume very little water because there is a leakage, because you spend most of the day working out of the house, for instance, and there are many, many other possible cases. So this was just an example that was taken from a report of Amnesty International on the case that let you understand why the court decided that the right to run your private life was infringed. So it didn't say the state did not have the right to merge all this data. It said that it was too much. It was not balanced with the motivation for doing that. And as I already underlined, there were other fundamental European principles, not only European: transparency, purpose limitation, data minimization, and contestation, also discrimination, of course. Here. Okay, let me go faster. But what to say in terms of long-term effects? If you build a system like this, it means that you don't trust your citizens, basically. So you build a culture of distrust, and you receive also distrust given the results. This is similar to the AMS case, in which you basically also you don't trust a specific typology of people, of individual. In the AMS case, the law prospects were considered as not they could not merit, they could not have assistance because the prospect was too low. Here is similar. There are some. The logic is that you need to find people who make frauds, given an organizational goal of supporting the work of officials. I say this because you could match the same organizational goal by making a different system, a system that perhaps look not only to frauds, but also can look also to people who have the rights to get some benefits and did not ask for those benefits, so it's not using those benefits. You see, this is a different typology of prediction that is not based on distrust towards citizens, but you can leverage prediction mechanism in order to identify people who are not using the welfare system properly, and they have some rights, they can get more support. Let me go, because we have only 7 minutes, and I think already commented all the other points. Let me go then to the broader case, or the sister case, that is the childcare benefits affair. Similar system, but specific to finding fraud for getting benefits for children, welfare benefits for children. It was basically the same. You had predictions. The genesis was different. It was farther back in the past, into the 20s. A blacklist of citizens suspected to fraud were built. There were 180,000 people. It's a lot if you consider the population of the Netherlands. And as in Syria, if you were in the blacklist, you were not informed. You could not contest the decision. You had a lot of errors, really a lot of errors. We will not go into the technical details of this case. I would just want to underline some impacts. Tens of thousands of parents were predicted with an error. So were predicted to be falsely predicted to having made a fraud to the state. Tens of thousands, and could not know why, could not contest properly the decisions, and they did not get explanations, and they got in troubles. There was a problem of discrimination, so specifically low-income groups, minorities, vulnerable groups were classified as okay. I will finish with my microphones are not working. We'll finish like this. Were classified as potential people who made fraud. This was again a disparate performance of the algorithm, and this is something that I want from the Amnesty report that I want to read. Parents and caregivers who were selected by the system had their benefits suspended and were subjected to hostile investigations characterized by harsh rules and policies, rigid interpretations of laws, and ruthless benefits recovery policies. As in the Predpol case, if you have a tool that tells you that this is someone who made a crime, also your attitude change as an official. You are not only neutrally investigating, you are investigating for looking for even single suspect of error. This led to devastating financial problems for the families affected, ranging from debt and unemployment to forced evictions. So you are out of your house because people were unable to pay the rent or make payments on their mortgages. Others were left with mental issues, health issues, and stress on their personal relationships, leading to divorces and broken homes. And this is the impact that had was national scandal, and the Prime Minister had to resign even. Okay, so this was the case that I wanted to make next time, but next time, next Monday, we will conclude with the ethical code of conduct with some, so we will cover the last aspect of ethics, that is deontology. I will then show you some thesis proposals. And as usual, tomorrow and next Tuesday, we will make exercise. Okay, the lecture is over.